begin talking about how to solve quadratic equations, it's important to have an understanding of the zero product property. It's also important to understand this for solving polynomial equations later on. So we're going to take a look at it and try and understand what it is. So here in the box we have if AB equals 0, meaning A multiplied by B equals 0, then these two things have to be true, or even possibly three things. A has to be equal to 0, or B has to be equal to 0, or possibly both of them have to be equal to 0. Now you might be thinking, why is this important? The general structure that we get when we solve an equation is basically going to pretty much always end up as a string of binomials multiplied together. So if we can find the zeros of each one of these binomials, then we can find solutions to that equation. So it doesn't just have to be two things or two integers multiplied together, or two numbers multiplied together. It can actually be any series of things multiplied together. So in the red here I have if A times B times C times D, or any unspecified number of numbers are being multiplied together equals 0, then each one of those could be equal to 0, or all of them could be equal to 0. So we have an example. We have two examples here. I'm going to start with this one because this one pertains to what we'll be doing when we solve quadratics. This one pertains more to polynomials. We're going to learn that this factors to x plus 5 and x plus 1 equals 0. So if I use the zero products property on it, I can think of this as A and this as B equal to 0. So that means either this binomial here has to be equal to 0, or this binomial here has to be equal to 0. So in the upcoming videos, we will get to this point and we will always set each binomial equal to 0. And that will give us our two solutions. So if I subtract 5 from both sides on this one, I get negative 5 as a solution. And if I subtract negative 1 from both sides on this one, I get that negative 1 is a solution. Now in this example, we have three binomials multiplied together. So if one of these equals 0, we're going to have a solution. So this would be thought of as A, this would be B, and this would be C. Now the important thing to also understand is that if one of these is 0, for example, if I go back to this one, if I put a negative 5 into this binomial right here, I'm going to get negative 5 plus 5, which is 0. It doesn't matter what comes out of the other binomial because I have to multiply it by 0. And any number multiplied by 0 becomes 0. So if I were to set each one of these equal to 0, I would get x equals negative 5 halves for the first one, x equals 2 for the second one, and x equals 3 for the third one. So our main structure that we're going to look at as we go ahead is we're always going to move all the terms to one side, factor that side into a product of binomials, and then find the zeros of each one of those binomials. And that's also going to continue into solving polynomial equations and beyond.